I don't want her kind here. Can you believe it? 7 short words. Just 7. But they were enough to shatter one woman's peace and ignite a firestorm of change. 1 second, she's a customer, minding her own business, maybe just glancing at a purse. The next, security guards are escorting her out. A public spectacle, humiliation burning in her cheeks. It's the kind of moment that makes your stomach drop, the kind of injustice that sticks with you. But here's where the story takes a turn you won't see coming. 3 days later, not weeks, not months, but 3 days, she walks back into that very same store. Not as a shopper, not as a disgruntled former customer. Oh no, she walks in with keys jingling in her hand, a signed contract flashing on her tablet screen, and her name, now emblazoned on the building's official paperwork. Stay with us, because you absolutely have to witness the exact, unforgettable moment. You need to see the look on the manager's face, the man who so casually dismissed and humiliated her, when he realizes that the woman he kicked out is now the one signing his paycheck. It's a moment of pure, unadulterated cinematic justice, and trust me, it's going to make your jaw drop. This isn't just a story, it's a statement, a masterclass in turning blatant disrespect into monumental triumph. It was a gray Thursday in March, one of those days where the sky just hangs heavy, promising nothing but more gray. The clock on the boutique wall read 11:42 a.m., and the place, a high-end fashion haven nestled on the corner of Maple and 3rd, was practically empty. You know the type. Hushed, immaculate, filled with the kind of luxury that whispers rather than shouts. Normally, it'd be bustling with the city's elite, but today it was just quiet, almost serene. Into this hushed elegance stepped Tasha Williams. She's 29, a civil engineer turned entrepreneur. Now, that might sound like a mouthful, but what it really means is that Tasha is brilliant, driven, and used to building things from bridges to businesses. Today, though, she wasn't building anything. She was just trying to kill 30 minutes before a downtown meeting. Her meeting was about securing a major contract for her burgeoning tech startup, a venture she poured her heart, soul, and every spare penny into. She was a woman on the cusp of something big, but you wouldn't know it from looking at her. She was dressed for comfort, not couture. Jeans that had seen better days, a faded college hoodie, the kind you wear when you're powering through a late-night coding session or just need to feel cozy. Her hair was pulled back into a simple, functional puff, and her face was bare, no makeup. She looked, to the casual observer, utterly unremarkable. In a store where every garment seemed to scream, exclusive, Tasha was an anomaly. She wasn't trying to blend in. She was just trying to browse, to escape the pre-meeting jitters for a few moments. She drifted towards a display of designer handbags, running her fingers over the supple leather of a purse. She wasn't planning to buy. She was just appreciating the craftsmanship, perhaps drawing inspiration for her own brand's aesthetic, which, though in a different industry, valued quality and design above all else. That's when Brett Hollis spotted her. Brett was the store manager, a man whose entire identity seemed wrapped up in the polished facade of the boutique. From behind the counter, he did a slow, deliberate head-to-toe scan. It wasn't a glance. It was an assessment, a judgment. His eyes lingered on her worn sneakers, her faded hoodie, the unadorned puff of her hair. He saw not a potential customer, but an intrusion, a disruption to his perfectly curated world. Without a word, he marched over. His footsteps, usually soft on the plush carpet, seemed to echo with an aggressive certainty. He stopped directly in front of Tasha, his arms crossed, a sneer barely disguised as a professional smile. "Ma'am," he began, his voice dripping with condescension, "we're not a thrift store." Tasha, still lost in the quiet contemplation of a handbag, blinked. She was genuinely confused. "Excuse me?" she asked, her brow furrowed. "I'm just browsing purses. They're beautiful." Brett's smirk widened, his voice growing louder, sharper. "Look, people like you can't afford the zipper on that bag, let alone the price tag. This isn't a public library, and it's certainly not a charity. I need you to leave. Now." The words hit Tasha like a physical blow. "People like you." The implication hung heavy in the air, thick and suffocating. It wasn't about her clothes. It was about something else entirely, something far more insidious. Her confusion began to curdle into a cold, slow-burning anger. "Excuse me," she repeated, her voice now tight with disbelief. "You have no idea who I am or what I can afford." "Oh, I think I have a pretty good idea," Brett scoffed, leaning in slightly, his eyes narrowed. "You heard me. Out. Now." And then he did it. He actually reached out and grabbed her elbow. It was a swift, aggressive motion, pulling her away from the display, a clear message that she was unwelcome, an object to be removed. A gasp echoed from behind the cash register. A young teenage cashier, wide-eyed and visibly uncomfortable, froze. Across the store, a lone customer, seemingly engrossed in a scarf display, discreetly pulled out her phone and started recording. The subtle hum of the boutique was suddenly replaced by a palpable tension, a ripple of unease. Within seconds, as if summoned by some unseen signal, a burly security guard appeared. He was a familiar face, a fixture at the high-end store, but today his presence felt less like reassurance and more like an impending threat. Tasha, though her hands were shaking, maintained a calm exterior. Her voice, though low, carried an undeniable force. "You have no right to touch me. You have no right to treat a customer this way." Brett cut her off, his face flushed with a petty triumph. "I have every right. This is my store. I decide who stays and who goes. And you, ma'am, are going." He gestured dismissively towards the exit. The guard, a silent enforcer, gently but firmly ushered Tasha towards the glass doors, onto the cold, unforgiving sidewalk. Shoppers who had been drawn by the commotion now stared, their faces a mixture of curiosity and discomfort. Tasha could feel their eyes on her, feel the weight of their judgment, or perhaps their pity. Her cheeks burned with a humiliation so profound it felt physical. She stood there, clutching her purse to her chest, the words "my store" echoing in her ears, a bitter, mocking refrain. This store? No, not for long. A fierce, cold resolve settled over her. She pulled out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. She didn't open social media to vent, didn't call a friend to commiserate. Instead, she opened a blank note app. Her thumb hovered for a moment. Then, with a decisive tap, she typed one simple, powerful sentence, "Buy the whole chain." She hit save, the digital click a quiet declaration of war. Then, she looked back through the gleaming glass doors. Inside, Brett Hollis, oblivious to the seismic shift he had just triggered, was already laughing with a co-worker, a smug, self-satisfied grin plastered across his face. "See how fast they scatter when you speak plain English?" Tasha could almost hear him brag. He had no idea. He had absolutely no idea that the woman he had just so cruelly and publicly shoved into the street was the sole granddaughter of Mrs. Eleanor Williams, the majority shareholder and quiet matriarch of Hollis Luxury Retail Group, the very chain he so proudly managed. He was about to learn a very expensive lesson about judging a book by its cover, or rather, a customer by her hoodie. Tasha didn't go home to cry. Crying wasn't in her nature, not when there was work to be done, not when injustice demanded a response. The burning humiliation, the sting of Brett's racist dismissal, didn't lead to tears. It ignited a cold, calculated fury, a laser-focused determination. She walked 2 blocks, her stride purposeful, to the multi-story parking garage where her modest electric sedan sat. Sliding into the driver's seat, she didn't turn the key. Instead, she pulled out her phone again, her thumb already finding the contact. Nana, Mrs. Eleanor Williams, Nana, was not just Tasha's grandmother. She was a force of nature, a titan of industry, though she preferred to operate from the shadows. The silent partner, the woman who owned a commanding 61% of Hollis Luxury Retail Group, the very company Brett Hollis believed was his. Nana picked up on the first ring, her voice, though aged, still sharp as a tack. "Baby girl, you sound off. What's wrong?" Her intuition was legendary. She could sense a tremor in Tasha's voice from 1,000 miles away. Tasha, her voice tight with suppressed emotion, relayed every single syllable. Every insult, every dismissive gesture, the feel of Brett's hand on her arm, the public shaming. She didn't embellish. She didn't exaggerate. She laid out the cold, hard facts, letting the raw injustice speak for itself. There was a beat of silence on the other end, a pause that spoke volumes. Then, Nana's voice, usually warm and comforting, shifted. It became something else entirely, velvet steel, smooth, unyielding, with an edge of quiet menace. Then we'll pull his floor out from under him, darling. He'll learn that my store belongs to the people who actually own it. The wheels of justice, or rather, corporate acquisition, began to spin with breathtaking speed. By noon, Nana's formidable legal team was in motion. These weren't just any lawyers. These were corporate sharks, specialists in mergers, acquisitions, and swiftly dismantling problematic employees. They moved with a precision and efficiency that would make a military operation look sluggish. By 3 p.m., they had located Brett's entire employment dossier, his contract, his performance reviews, any disciplinary actions, every clause and subclause. They had the franchise agreements for the specific boutique, the commercial lease documents, every single liability he or the store had ever incurred. They were building a case, not for a lawsuit, but for an unequivocal, irreversible corporate takeover. They were looking for weaknesses, for leverage, for any chink in the armor of Brett's perceived authority. By 6 p.m., Nana, with a quiet dignity, signed her majority shares, the very foundation of Hollis Luxury Retail Group, over to Tasha. It was more than a transfer of ownership. It was a legacy, a trust, a profound act of empowerment. A gift and a weapon rolled into one. Nana had said, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of love and righteous indignation. Tasha now held the reins, the ultimate power to rectify the wrong. Friday morning, before the sun had fully chased away the last vestiges of night, Tasha emailed the board of directors. The subject line was curt, direct, and left no room for ambiguity. Emergency shareholder meeting, Monday, 9 a.m. sharp. There was no explanation, no preamble, just a clear, unyielding directive. She knew the power she now wielded, and she wasn't afraid to use it. The weekend that followed was a blur, a crucible of preparation. Tasha spent it, ironically, in hoodies again, but this time, the comfort was a uniform of war. She was flanked by an army of high-powered lawyers, their faces grimly determined. Spreadsheets, dense with financial data and corporate structures, covered every available surface. There was a checklist, meticulously crafted, titled with chilling precision, "Remove Brett Hollis from Planet Retail." This wasn't just about one store, it was about sending a message. She delved into the minutiae, learning the company inside and out, not just as an owner, but as a future CEO. She understood the supply chains, the marketing strategies, the employee policies. She wasn't just taking over, she was preparing to lead. Sunday night, as the city slept, Tasha drafted her entrance speech. It wasn't a speech for the board, not really. It was a speech for herself, a declaration of intent. She practiced in the mirror, her voice initially wavering, cracking under the weight of emotion and exhaustion. But with each repetition, with every word she spoke, her voice grew stronger, more resonant, until it was a clear, unwavering instrument of her will. She was no longer the humiliated woman on the sidewalk. She was the architect of a new dawn. She did not sleep. The adrenaline, the sheer magnitude of what she was about to do, kept her awake. She did not post on social media, didn't seek validation or sympathy. She did not breathe to complain. She breathed to acquire, to conquer, to transform. Every breath was a silent affirmation of her purpose. Monday arrived, crisp and unforgiving. At precisely 8:59 a.m., Tasha pushed open the very same gleaming glass door Brett Hollis so meticulously polished every morning. This time, there was no head-to-toe scan, no dismissive sneer. This time, the security guard, the very man who had ushered her out just 3 days prior, offered a respectful, almost deferential nod. "Morning, Ms. Williams," he said, his voice quiet. "Owner packets at customer service." The world had, indeed, turned on its axis. Inside, Brett Hollis, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around him, was busy demeaning a new, nervous stock boy. He hadn't checked his email yet, hadn't seen the urgent summons for the emergency board meeting. He was still living in his small, self-important bubble, convinced of his own invincibility. The meeting lasted a mere 11 minutes. Sharp, precise, unyielding, Tasha presented her case, her voice steady and clear, outlining Brett's egregious behavior, the liabilities he represented, and her new majority ownership. The board, comprised of seasoned executives who understood the bottom line and the power of a majority shareholder, listened intently. The vote was unanimous, swift, decisive. Tasha Williams was now the CEO of Hollis Luxury Retail Group. Brett's termination letter was printed on heavy, cream-colored stock, the kind reserved for official, unassailable documents. It sat on the polished conference table, a stark white rectangle, like a loaded paperweight, awaiting its final signature. Tasha picked up the pen, the very same elegant, expensive pen Nana had used to sign over the shares, a symbolic transfer of power and responsibility. With a steady hand, she signed her name, each stroke a testament to resilience, to justice, to the power of a woman underestimated. Camera phones, discreetly held by some of the board members and legal team, were already rolling, capturing the historic moment. A quiet hum of anticipation filled the room. She stood, deliberately smoothing down the front of her still cheap hoodie. It was a subtle gesture, a quiet defiance, a reminder of the woman Brett had dismissed. Then, her gaze sweeping across the room, she spoke, her voice clear and resonant. "All right," she said, a hint of steel in her tone. "Let's go tell him together." The moment of reckoning had arrived. They marched onto the sales floor in a silent, formidable V formation. It was a powerful, almost ceremonial procession. Tasha, the new general, was at the apex, her posture straight, her gaze unwavering. On her left, her lead counsel, a sharp-suited woman with a reputation for dismantling corporate adversaries. On her right, the head of HR, a stoic man whose presence alone signaled serious trouble. Behind them, a few other members of the legal team and board, forming a silent, unyielding phalanx. The air crackled with anticipation. Brett Hollis, still oblivious, still holding court over the nervous stock boy, saw the procession approaching. A smirk, habitual and arrogant, spread across his face. He actually chuckled, a dismissive, condescending sound. Well, he drawled, his voice carrying across the quiet store. "We don't allow flash mobs here, folks. This is a high-class establishment." He thought it was a joke. He thought he was in charge. Tasha didn't break stride. Her eyes were fixed on him, a calm, unwavering intensity. She reached in her bag, pulling out the heavy, pristine termination packet. It was a physical manifestation of his downfall. She stopped directly in front of him, the V formation fanning out behind her, effectively surrounding him. Her voice, though quiet, was amplified by the sudden, stunned silence of the store. "Brett Hollis," she began, the words clear and precise. "You're done here." His smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of confusion. He actually laughed again, a nervous, disbelieving sound this time. "Pretty sure I make staffing decisions around here, ma'am." He scoffed, tried to regain control, trying to project authority he no longer possessed. He even glanced at the security guard, the very man who had escorted Tasha out, as if seeking confirmation of his power. Tasha didn't even dignify the comment with a direct response. Her eyes, cool and direct, held his. "Not anymore, Brett. Not anymore. I bought your parent company at 9:07 this morning. Effective immediately." She held up the packet, letting the weight of the document speak for itself. "Clean your desk in 15 minutes, or security carts your stuff to the dumpster." Her voice was devoid of emotion, a pure statement of fact. The words hung in the air, cold and heavy. Brett's face, which moments before had been smug, cycled through a horrifying cascade of emotions. Confusion, then dawning recognition, then, finally, absolute terror. His eyes darted from Tasha's calm face to the grim faces of the lawyers, then to the HR manager. He looked at the security guard, the one who had removed Tasha from the store, a silent plea for help or explanation. The guard, his face impassive, merely shrugged. "She signs the checks now, man," he murmured, his voice barely audible, but the message was clear. The power had shifted, completely, irrevocably. The store, once hushed, was now alive with a frantic energy. Customers drawn by the commotion, by the sheer, unbelievable drama unfolding before. Their eyes pulled out their phones. The customer who had recorded Tasha's initial humiliation was already live streaming. A TikTok live, which had started with a handful of curious viewers, suddenly spiked from 12 to 12,000 in 30 seconds. The comments section exploded with a flurry of emojis and exclamations. Brett stammered, his bravado completely evaporated, replaced by a desperate, pathetic plea. You can't." Tasha cut him off, her voice ringing with the authority he had so brazenly abused. "I can. I did. I am." Each word was a hammer blow, shattering his world. Then, she turned, her gaze softening slightly, towards the wide-eyed teenage cashier who had gasped during her humiliation. The young woman looked terrified, on the verge of tears. "You still got a job," Tasha said, her voice gentle but firm. "And the promotion, assistant manager, effective immediately. You showed integrity when it mattered." The kid blinked back tears, a choked sound escaping her lips, overwhelmed by the sudden, unexpected validation. Brett, desperate, grabbed a shopping bag from a display, clutching it like a life preserver in a sinking ship. "At least let me buy," he started, perhaps hoping to salvage some shred of dignity, some final act of patronage. Tasha's eyes hardened again. "We no longer serve people who confuse prejudice with policy." It was a mic drop moment, a powerful articulation of the new store ethos. And then, the symmetry. Security, the same guard who had escorted Tasha out, now moved to escort Brett. Same door, same sidewalk, same gray world outside. Only now, the sidewalk wasn't just watching. It was watching on 1,000 screens, a global audience bearing witness to instant karma. As Brett, head down, was let out, a ripple of murmurs turned into something more. Someone in the parking lot, a lone figure, started a slow clap. Others joined in, a scattered, then growing rhythm of applause. By the time Brett Hollis reached his car, a battered sedan that seemed to shrink under the weight of his public disgrace, the video of his termination was trending number 3 in the nation under the hashtag #ZipperMoney. The world had seen, and the world was reacting. Tasha didn't gloat long. There was no time for it, and frankly, no desire. Her purpose wasn't revenge. It was rectification, transformation. The moment Brett was out of sight, she called an all-staff huddle. The remaining employees, a mix of shell-shocked, relieved, and cautiously optimistic faces, gathered around her, unsure of what to expect from their new, hoodie-clad CEO. Tasha introduced herself, not with corporate jargon, but with a simple, human touch. She acknowledged the incident, not shying away from the truth, but immediately pivoting to the future. Then, she rolled out 3 instant, impactful reforms, delivered with the calm authority of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. First, the bias training budget triples, effective today. She explained that this wasn't just about avoiding lawsuits. It was about fostering an inclusive environment where every single person, customer and employee alike, felt respected and valued. It was about dismantling the implicit biases that allowed people like Brett to thrive. Second, a living wage floor set 15% above the city minimum. She looked at the faces of the cashiers and stock boys, many of whom were clearly struggling to make ends meet. "You are the backbone of this company," she stated, her voice firm. "You deserve to be compensated fairly, to live with dignity." It was a radical move in an industry often criticized for low wages, a direct investment in her people. Third, 30% of future profits earmarked for HBCU scholarships. This wasn't just about corporate social responsibility. It was about giving back, about investing in the next generation of talent, particularly from historically marginalized communities, to ensure that more Tasha Williamses had opportunities, regardless of how they were dressed. The clip of Tasha's announcement, recorded by an employee and quickly shared, hit Twitter like wildfire. Initially, stock in Hollis Luxury dipped slightly, a knee-jerk reaction to the unexpected corporate upheaval. But then, as investors watched the video, as they saw the overwhelming positive public response, as they realized the brand had just gone viral for all the right reasons, for integrity, for justice, for social responsibility, the stock didn't just rebound. It soared. The brand, once seen as elitist and stuffy, was now perceived as progressive, authentic, and deeply human. It had just gone viral for free, garnering more positive press than any ad campaign could ever buy. By Tuesday morning, foot traffic at the Maple and Third Boutique had doubled. People weren't just coming to shop. They were coming to witness, to support, to be part of the story. They wanted to see the new CEO. They wanted receipts with her signature, a tangible piece of the revolution. The energy in the store was palpable, a vibrant hum of renewed purpose. A local street artist, inspired by the viral story, spray-painted the side wall of the boutique. It was a giant, striking silhouette of a puff-haired woman, strong and regal, holding a set of keys aloft like a sword, a modern-day warrior of justice. It became an instant landmark, a symbol of hope and defiance. Brett Hollis, meanwhile, was a ghost. He deleted his LinkedIn profile after 2.4 million people tagged him in the video, his face and name synonymous with public disgrace. He applied for a department store job 2 towns over, desperate for any work. But the internet, relentless and unforgiving, had a long memory. The hiring algorithm, designed to flag problematic candidates, coughed up his name, his face, his viral moment of infamy. He was quietly, definitively passed over. Tasha saw the article about Brett's struggle, but she felt zero joy. No satisfaction, just a quiet confirmation that consequences, real and tangible, truly existed. It wasn't about him anymore. It was about the bigger picture. She spent the rest of the week not in a corner office, but on the sales floor. She restocked bags, learning the inventory firsthand. She learned names, not just the names of her new employees, but the names of her customers, their preferences, their stories. She memorized which zipper cost what, understanding the product she now owned from the ground up. It was a hands-on approach, a commitment to genuine leadership, to building a culture from the foundation of respect and understanding. Friday night, as the last customer left, Tasha locked up the boutique herself. She stood under the soft glow of a neon sign, the one that now bore the Hollis Luxury Retail Group name, a name that felt different, cleaner now. She looked up, a faint smile playing on her lips, and repeated the sentence she had typed just 5 days earlier in her note app, by the whole chain. This time, she smiled not just because she owned it, but because she finally, truly believed it was possible. Not just to own the buildings, but to own the narrative, to reshape an industry, to foster a community where everyone, regardless of their appearance or background, was treated with dignity. She was building something far greater than a retail empire. She was building a legacy. So, what's the real takeaway from Tasha Williams' incredible story? It's simple, yet profoundly powerful. Never, ever judge a customer, a co-worker, or stranger. Don't make assumptions based on how someone looks, what they wear, or the color of their skin. Because the person you carelessly underestimate today, the one you dismiss or disrespect, might just be the one signing your termination letter tomorrow. Or, in Tasha's case, buying the entire company you work for. It's a stark reminder to treat everyone like they own the building, because one day they just might. Or, perhaps more importantly, they might be the person who could own it, the person who deserves the same respect and dignity as anyone else. If this story, this real-life saga of injustice, turned into triumph, made you rethink a bias you didn't even realize you held, if it sparked a flicker of understanding about the daily microaggressions faced by so many, then please hit that like button. Let us know this message resonated with you. And if you, or someone you know, has ever faced discrimination, whether it was in a store, at work, or just walking down the street, please drop a comment below. Share your experience. This channel isn't just about telling stories. It's about creating a platform, a megaphone for your voice. Let's build a community that stands up against injustice, one story, one comment, one shared experience at a time. Don't miss out on more stories of resilience, empowerment, and everyday heroes. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so that you never miss the moment the underdog becomes the owner, the silence find their voice, and justice, in its own incredible way, prevails. Because sometimes, the greatest power comes not from what you have, but from who you are and what you refuse to tolerate.